I'm making another traveler's journal today because tomorrow is the birthday of my friend and I want to gift her one. The last one I made, I already noticed that the secondhand leather that I acquired isn't really the thickness that I need for this type of journal. This one I want to make in this size again, like the first one that I did for myself. So this is the size of journal that needs to fit in there, and the leather that I have now is a bit too bendy and too flimsy for that. I already cut one piece. It looks just black or kind of like a dark brown in the camera, but it's kind of a deep purple, like an aubergine color. So my plan is to cut another piece of leather that is a similar thickness to this one and glue them together with leather glue. And leather glue works in a way where you'd need to hammer it down so that it really adheres to each other. And in my head, this also works like a reinforcement of, like, it adds a bit of strength and structure, which I'm not sure of because I didn't work with leather that much so far. But that's the plan. So I will cut the second piece of leather and get my leather glue. So I finished the third traveler's notebook that I made. It turned out pretty good, I think, especially because I wasn't really sure if the technique will work to glue two pieces together, but actually it worked very well. So this is the outside. It is this type of dark aubergine color. The camera doesn't really pick it up. And on the inside it is this really dark blue color, which the camera also doesn't really pick up, but maybe you can see the difference in tone. What I did is I made the same cardboard inlay that I did with my first one. This is a photograph I took of peonies that I thought were beautiful, and this is a postcard where I wrote something for my friend. And here we have the same thing that I did with the other one. You can put something in here, and the back side of the cardboard inlay with a pen holder attached to it. It's just a piece of elastic that I glued in there and then secured it. And on the back of the cardboard inlay I glued an envelope, and there are stickers in here. So this is the back. I used golden eyelids this time and just black elastic. So I think it turned out very well, and I hope she will enjoy using it. Sehr gut. I just discovered this tiny little lake in the forest. I actually didn't really discover it because it is man-made. Someone made this, but I didn't know it existed until this morning when my neighbor told me. No one is here except me and Finn, and I don't dare to swim in it because I don't really know what's in there, but I'm cooling my legs off with standing in it, so it's really peaceful. You can hear some cars go by because there is a road kind of around it, but it's really nice. I quickly wanted to give a reading update. I recently read and also finished Schloss Gripsholm by Kurt Tucholsky. I think in English it is called Gripsholm Castle. So that's the English translation if you want to look it up. It's kind of a cute little vacation story set in Sweden in the summer. It is written 1950, so maybe it's also set in 1950. It seems like a fitting time period. There's nothing like really dramatic going on. There are some kind of dramatic aspects to it, but I think it is a cute little quick summer read. It won't make it into my top favorite list, but it was nice. I enjoyed it. I liked the language. It was kind of funny. He uses a lot of broken sentences. He often stops in the middle of a sentence, especially if the characters are talking to each other. But it's written in a very funny way. I'm also still reading Perfection by Vincenzo Latronico. I'm reading this with a friend. I talked about this in last week's video, and this week I'm reading the second quarter. I don't have anything more to say than I said last week, so... Then I started reading Abigail by Magda Szabo. She's a Hungarian author, and so far I'm really enjoying it. It is about a young girl who is sent to a boarding school in Hungary, and it is set during or at the start of World War II. So it has kind of a dark atmosphere, but in this also kind of gothic sense. I don't know how to describe it, but it is... I like the aesthetic that comes across through the writing, which is something that is kind of important to me. I'm only 60 pages in, so I can't really say much about the story or the characters, but it is... So far I really enjoy it, and I think I will go through this pretty quickly because it is a captivating world and a captivating story. So, and then I'm also listening to the audiobook of A Room with a View by E.M. Forster. I do struggle a bit with the language with this one because it is... I don't exactly know when it is written, but it is set in kind of a Victorian time period, and it uses the kind of language that was spoken at this time, like a historical British English, which isn't so much of an issue for me, but the way conversations are held is kind of hard for me to understand because it is this societal politeness to never really say what you mean and put it in these flowery kind of sentences. And so far I feel like I sometimes miss part of the context or part of what is happening because I don't really get these sentences and get how they word everything, because it is wrapped in this language. Like, I know the words, but I don't know the meaning behind it. And I am a pretty literal thinker, so I always struggle if the meaning of words is something different than the literal meaning of words. I still think it is really enjoyable because I like historical language and I like British accents, as you probably can tell, because people said to me that I also have a kind of strong British accent, which is kind of absurd. I am aware of that because I've never been to England or the United Kingdom or any other English-speaking country whatsoever, because I don't really travel. I don't really know how that happened, but it did, and that's just the way that I talk. I don't think about it and go through my brain to the right pronunciation to sound very posh, but I kind of do sound like that now. Also, a quick knitting update. I finished the body of my rusty red brownish maroon sweater and it is done. I did the ribbing, I did tubular bind off, which took quite a long time, but it looks really neat and pretty. And I started the first sleeve. It's not a lot, but I started it. I'm really pleased with the process and how it's turning out. I feel like sewing something today, and I just went through a really tedious decision process. I decided on self-drafting a pattern for a side-tie top with ruffles on the bottom, which is a very daring thing for me to do because it digs deep into the cottagecore aesthetic, and I'm not really sure if that's my aesthetic. But since I live a kind of cottagecore life, I feel like I should at least try it. And I looked at every single piece of fabric that I have that is suitable for summer and decided on this one. If you've seen my thrift haul that I made 2 or 3 weeks ago, you maybe recognize this because this is a leftover of the bed sheets that I got. Because they were too big, I had to fit them to size of my bedding. So I have this leftover fabric. It is 100% cotton, nothing fancy or special. But I think this is a fabric that I won't be sad if I don't wear the finished garment. Because it is an experiment. I have to see if I like the style. In theory, I like it if I see it, but if I like it on myself, that's a different question. So because I basically didn't really pay for this. This is just a leftover piece of my bed sheets, and they were €5 because they were thrifted. So I feel like this is the perfect trial fabric to do something daring. I made a quick little drawing on how I want the whole thing to look like, and then measured everything. I just measured the top that I am wearing and like my body proportions, and then drew it on this big piece of paper. So this is the back piece of the pattern, but I do have a trick to use the same pattern piece and so you don't have to cut 2 separate pieces. If the only thing that differs from the back to the front piece is the height where the collar sits, if you're doing a collar, but like the height of the neckline. So this outer line here is my guide to where the front neckline will sit. I will just cut into the paper. You'll see. So now if you want to cut the back piece, you just use this line. And if you want to cut the front piece, you just fold them down along the line that I cut them. So you can use this line for guidance. Another little trick, if you have woven fabric like this, preferably cotton and maybe even linen, I don't really know, you can also rip it. You don't have to cut it. You just need to make a cut for the start, and then you can just rip it and it will rip at the exact line that you have cut. So I wanted to use this guideline, and then I can just cut it, rip it. This is for the ruffles. These are the ties, and here we have the 2 pattern pieces that I cut. So now I use my serger to make the ties. I just serge down the whole length of the tie and then turn it around, which is kind of tedious, but I will show you. So I quickly closed off one end of the tie, and I'm going to use a knitting needle and place it a bit further down the seam, because this will rip if I poke it with the needle. So I will just place that somewhere here and try to get the fabric to fold in on itself like so, and get the needle in there. And then I can just push the fabric over it. There are special tools for it, but I don't have them, and I think it still works fine with this method. And then you can just turn it inside out and get the needle out again. And then you have to fiddle a bit with the end, but that's how I make my toys. There is a thunderstorm going on outside, so if you hear a weird noise in the background, it is brown noise that I put on for my dog because she's having a panic attack right now. She's very, very scared of thunderstorms. So, but back to sewing. I just pressed my ties and I will now put them in between the two pieces of the front part and the back part, and then sew along this seam. This seam I will leave the shoulder part open, then sew around the neckline, and same on the other side. So this is the current state of it. I think it turned out pretty good. I feel like the fit is pretty much as I was expecting it to be. So in pattern making, when you do shoulders, you usually don't do them in this 45 degrees angle. You slant them down slightly towards your arms because your shoulders don't go out straight from your neck. They go down a bit. But what I really like about this is that it gives a bit of a boxy shape, which I really enjoy. And since I have rounded shoulders, like they go forward, I'm working on my posture, but it is hard. But I really like the look that it gives me. So it is finished. I'm pretty pleased with the outcome. Overall, I think it looks really good and I feel like the cut really suits my body type. I don't really know if it's me yet. I feel like there is a version of me that looks like this. Maybe I need to embrace her, but so far I am a bit unsure of this type of style on myself, but I feel really comfortable. Also, the fabric is insanely soft. This is just as if you were laying in bed in your bed sheets, because these are bed sheets. I also thought it would be funny to do a photo shooting in my bed with these with these bed sheets and the top, so I blend into my bed. It would be kind of funny and quite fitting for me, so maybe I'll do that. I'm also kind of proud of how neat everything is. I serged all of the edges, I pressed all of the seams. Everything is looking very clean and pristine, so that is also nice.